Some time has now passed since Donald Trump and his regime's decision to basically cut off all US foreign aid to the poorest people in the world. And as time has passed, we get more data from the effects of that. And the effects are even more apocalyptic than you might have thought in terms of how many lives have been and will be ended as a result of Donald Trump's decision to save a nickel and a dime for US taxpayers. So we're gonna get into that. But before we get into that, let's talk about one of the loudest voices on the generally Trump supporting right in regard to foreign aid.
We help the world. And when you're talking about making wells for people in the Congo to get fresh water, when you're talking about food and medicine to places that don't have access, like, no way that should have been cut out. And that should have been clear before they make these radical cuts. Like, there's gotta be a way to keep aid and not have fraud. And you can't say we're gonna kill everything so that there's no fraud, but then you're killing all the good.
And again, I get in this position where, like, that's good, that's good. Now he said it should have been obvious, and I agree. I think, like, you have a show, you could be talking about all of this for a long time. I mean, you're buddies with Elon Musk, you bring on Donald Trump, like, if you wanted to avoid this, you could do something. But that said, whatever, he's talking more positively about it now. Too late, it doesn't exist anymore. There won't be those wells. We won't save those people's lives. But it is good that in the absence of the aid, we now miss it a little bit, I guess. Maybe if a future Democratic president decides to restart American foreign aid, then maybe Joe Rogan will be an ally on that. In any event, here is some of what's projected to happen as a result of the killing of this aid. So there were projected models assessing two scenarios. One in which 2023 funding levels continue, and another where the 83% of USAID's programs that Trump says they're gonna cut would be cut. Researchers estimated that more than 14 million preventable deaths could occur over just the next 5 years, including 4.5 million deaths among children under 5 if cuts continue. So they've done those cuts. Those cuts are there. The programs are shut down. USAID has now been swallowed up by the State Department and barely even functions. 14 million deaths. And USAID over the years has saved many lives. The Lancet did a report. They said researchers wrote that higher levels of USAID funding were associated with a 15% reduction in all-cause mortality worldwide over 21 years. That is massive that we were able to have that big of an effect. All-cause mortality over the course of 2 decades. That is what we bought, and all of the goodwill that comes from it, from the infrastructure projects and from the vaccination campaigns and the medicines that we provide, all of that. That's a thing. We benefited in terms of a reputation while also doing good. And that's done now. And so on malaria and on AIDS, by the way, every person has been sold an obvious lie about how much is actually spent on this. US citizens contribute about 17 cents a day to USAID. It's literally like those old commercials that used to run on TV. About 64 bucks a year. And everybody thinks it's like a third of our budget. And then when they vote based on that misinformation. And so when you ask people, do we spend too much on foreign aid? 58% say that yeah, we spend too much on aid. Almost 1/3 of Democrats, 65% of independents, 81% of Republicans. And then when you tell them how much we actually spend and ask, do we spend too much? It drastically cuts it. Down to 34%. Half of the Democrats that were opposed to it no longer are. Almost half of the independents no longer are. It cuts the Republicans. You still have 50% of Republicans, even after being reminded that less than 1% of the US budget goes to it, are still opposed to it. But 30% reduction rate. All it took was a fact. That's how important objective reality is. And that's how important Fox News and right-wing media are, that they lie to people to get them to support the killing of these programs. And not just these programs, and not just the funding, but something like 14 million lives over the next 5 years. Literally millions of kids will die thanks to what Donald Trump did, and importantly, what Elon Musk did. So the next time he's sobbing on an interview about how I've never hurt anybody in my life, why are they burning my Teslas? He's the dude that has been pushing for this and in fact wanted the cuts to be far more drastic. He thinks we could pile up that number even higher. You can get to 6-7 million dead kids. That's the legacy of him and Doggy.